Told you I'm gonna give you shit to ride to. You hear me? Dynamite. Yeah. Drop top like I really think I'm bulletproof. Bullies get bullied too. I got black hoodies too. Would that make me a target? Cause I ain't go to Harvard. Cause our skin is black. Penitentiary's packed. See, I smoke way too much to vent now. 40 hours ain't enough to pay the rent now. I made some moves on the block. This my Rubik's Cube. I put some shoes on the block and made some Beetlejuice. When you fucking with chickens, you can't fly with the eagles. Don't be fucking with niggas that rode on your people. He was hoping for freedom, sold his soul to a demon, and still got 28. I pray he getting raped. This is really my city. I'm not really a rapper. I hit a lot of licks, but I'm not really a trapper. Probably close to a victim, guilt by association. Negotiations for procreations and declarations. My obligations for levitations, no limitations. No liberation besides the paper and medication. See, I drank way too much to lean now. My mama number the only one that's on speed dial. And I can see it in her eyes, she still got hope for me. And if you see it in my eyes, throw up the vote for me. Yeah. And if you see it in my eyes, throw up the vote for me.
Yeah, welcome back to part 3. Just gonna do quote for the day and get on up out of here because I see this thing want to cut off tonight and cut up. If you haven't checked out the first 2 parts of the show, please check that out. Follow me on the part 3. You know, we gonna keep this thing rolling. One monkey don't stop no show and all the rest of that because we still got 10 minutes to go. So it ain't gonna stop nothing. So we gonna take a look at Chris Brady's blog, which is the author of the Chris Brady blog on chrisbrady.typepad.com/my_web blog/2008/the-temptation-html. This was posted on March 4th, 2008, and it reads, "The temptation of removing human freedom. One thing that is common temptation for leaders is to lose patience with higher level forms of influence and instead resort to an authoritarian style. After all, isn't it easier to bark out orders and make demands, flexing one's authority muscles and showing subordinates your stripes?" I ran across a great paragraph by author Dan B. Allender in his excellent book, Leading with a Limp. Quote, "The temptation for all leaders is to encroach on human freedom and take away the suffering of humanity through some form of authoritarian order. Indulging this temptation underlies the fascism of all utopias. Removing human freedom is done with sincerity and the desire to serve the forsaken and bit broad of humanity. But all of this is a lie. If limiting human freedom tempted Jesus before he began his calling as the Christ, then it will be conceivable be an ongoing temptation for all who fall into leadership. First, one can clearly see where compassionate politicians take a wrong turn. With misplaced compassion, they propose programs and government agendas to relieve the sufferings and hardships of certain peoples, only to end up limiting human freedoms in the process. And it is a short argument to state that government is better at messing things up than they are at executing programs. It is almost a rule that government programs grow and take on an unmanageable growth life of their own. What may begin sincerely enough as a measure to help others, given the benefit of the doubt and ignoring the very likely possibility that there is self-serving vote selling involved as well, apparently well-meaning politicians end up actually limiting human freedoms and accomplishing the opposite of what they claim they intended. As Ronald Reagan said, "The scariest words you could ever hear here are, 'I'm from the government and I'm here to help,'" end quote. So much for politicians. What about companies? It seems here there's always controversy swirling regarding some form of competition among companies. Those that cry unfair competition with others, those that want the government protection against foreign competition, those that try to monopolize their position in the marketplace instead of having to face the pressures of competition. But all of business life is about competition. Competition is the gymnasium of discomfort from which stronger companies emerge. The history of business and free enterprise society showed that the society, through its customers, is nearly always better served when competition is allowed to reign freely. Anytime it is constrained artificially, or when certain entities are given a pass from the rigors of competition, the customers and society suffer. Examples are plenty. One such example is the deregulation of the phone companies. Another is the regulation of the airline industry. Another is the market-driven deregulation of the software industry through the concept of open source programs. Each of these deregulations spawned new days of freedom in those industries, and while change was painful and even fatal for some of the more entrenched and inflexible entities, the result was one of the lower prices and better service for customers and an improved competitive environment for companies that not only made the surviving ones better, but became a breeding ground for a host of new, agile, creative players on the scene. One of my favorite examples of this is Southwest Airlines, which had a competitive new idea and such excellent execution of its idea that the old, stodgy, poor service entrance airlines didn't want to have to compete with the new upstart. Instead, the big boys resorted to lawsuits. They determined to utilize the full strength of their corporate financial resources to protect their territory. Their strategy was that it would be easier to litigate a competitor to death rather than beat them on the open field of play. Kill them while they were young, so to speak. After over a decade, however, Southwest Airlines prevailed, even though a quick reading of the link below will show that companies continue to use courts to gain unfair advantages over competitors. Southwest Airlines not only survived the legal decimation strategy of scared to compete competitors, but have become a big boy themselves, consistently remaining the most profitable airline on the continent. So much for companies. What of individuals? This is where I really want to focus. In my experience with leaders, the authoritarian style always appears to me to be the amateur approach. This is because, as Dan Allender so aptly points out, it is the easiest and most automatic. Without thinking, someone in a position of authority, and this can be observed among little children, most easily sinks to a level of relying upon their position for influence. John Maxwell calls this positional leadership. It is the lowest level of influence. Do this because I have authority over you. And sometimes the reason given by the leader for such behavior is the level of chaos encountered and the need for drastic action. Certainly there is a time for this, but it is rare. More often, influence of a higher order is called for. I find it interesting that Allender calls this tendency for leaders to slip into authoritarian influence a temptation. If he is correct, we as leaders should always be on guard against our tendencies for control and work ever harder to adhere to our purposes of influence and cause. The 5 levels of influence co-author Orrin Woodward and I discuss in the Launching a Leadership Revolution book are to serve as a roadmap away from this temptation towards authoritarian leadership. Corporations, small businesses, governments, homes, churches, and community organizations will all be better served by leaders that understand the nature of true influence. Real leaders have influence because people want to follow them. Real leaders have influence because others buy into them. Real leaders have influence because people get caught up in their vision. Real leaders have influence because others buy into their cause. Real leaders have influence because they have character, get results, share the credit, and accept the blame. I wonder how much better our society would be if our politicians, corporate leaders, and individual leaders at every level of society understood these basic truths. This is the point of this blog. I hope it is helping. And that is our quote for the day. Yeah, y'all, don't forget about the influence in leadership. That's the most prominent part of it all. And I will see you guys later. Good afternoon, morning, and evening. And I will see you soon on the next show. Peace.
We are now transferring you to a customer care rep. Please hold the line and we will answer your call as soon as possible. Thank you for choosing. By the way, to ensure you're getting great service, your call may be recorded or monitored.